And it seemed so timely to share that with my companions in the path at Aranyabodhi Hermitage at that time. I find for myself for this particular practice that whenever I remember it and do practice it, it is almost always, in fact, I don't know why I say almost, because I don't remember any time that it has not been really helpful and beneficial for me. And the only time that I do remember it not being helpful and beneficial for me is when I've forgotten about it and haven't applied it, and I missed my chance with it. It's like I just missed my train, I missed my boat, I missed my plane because I forgot. And it just is so valuable. And perhaps I could just give a really brief overview of what this teaching and practice is. It is grounded in the early Buddhist teaching, and yet also in the early Buddhist teachings, when we speak directly from the suttas, sometimes to find the perfectly matching language sometimes is not easy. So many of the words that are used are so multifaceted in meaning and don't have a word that just matches up really well. And then there are the words that we use in our contemporary experience to describe our contemporary experience. And so I took language that's really common now, these days, here in the United States and in California, in my time living in California, that I hear people describe their experience using these words. So I'm taking words that people use to describe their experience here, now, in this place, and then applying them in a way that's very much in line with and using the principles and practices of the early Buddhist teaching, but the Buddha never taught it specifically in this particular way. So it's not like just translating a specific sutta. It's going a step further than that to really bring, these principles of the early Buddhist teaching and practices, and then just bring them into a paradigm that is really how we are seeing and experiencing and holding and responding or reacting to things now, the way that we're framing our experience. So, I don't know if you can see me here now or not, or if it's possible to be able to, let's see if I can turn on my own camera here for a moment, see what happens. Oh, I'm in the forest. Just a moment, let me just change it. No virtual background. I'm just here with you. So I don't know how to respond to what the tech support has just asked me for. And I'll ask them to let me know. Anyway, so here, close up together with here's the Buddha and the altar here. And I'm just going to bring up my hands here, and you can see my hands, just my ordinary human hands as they are, in the candlelight here. And on one hand, then I'm using the basis of experience, I'd say, that we often talk about, how we see things, how we receive things, how we hold them, and how we react to or respond to them. It's like seeing them or hearing them, whatever sense space it is. It can be smelling or it can be touching also. But just at the sense base level that we perceive is like how we see something or how we hear something. And then we talk about taking things in, how we receive things, how we take them on, how we take them in. That's number 2. Number 3, then we talk about holding things and how we're holding things, and that's number 3. Number 4, we talk about then reacting or responding to things choicefully and intentionally. And that's number 4. So it's like out there seeing things and taking them in, holding them, and then the in and the out in a way. So this is related then also to the teaching on the asavas, which are also translated as influxes and outflows. So that's 4 on this hand. I take my other hand and I have the 4 Brahma Viharas. So I have metta, loving kindness, karuna, compassion, mudita. I'm going to use the word appreciation, which also Anagarika Siddhinanda used, reflecting on this teaching. And then for upekkha, I still haven't found one word that I really want to use for upekkha in this case, but I feel like really the best way to describe it for this particular practice is actually balance. Balance. And so we can then ask ourselves for how we're seeing something, or how we're hearing something, or for how we're taking something in, or for how we're holding something. That's these 4 here, or even how we're reacting or responding to something. Is it with kindness? Is it with compassion? Is it with appreciation? And is it balanced? Just according to our own sense of balance. And for the upekkha part, then I want to go even more deeply into the meaning. But for just now, I'll just use the word balance. But for upekkha, then I think about this kind of balance as being the kind of quality that actually makes all of these unconditional. When we talk about unconditional love, when we talk about unconditional compassion, we don't talk about unconditional appreciation, but we recognize that as I think a natural quality of love. When we talk about how the mother loves their only child in this way, it's like whatever hurt them, we feel sorry and we want them not to hurt. That's unconditional compassion in a way, but if you're talking about it as your only child, then it's not completely unconditional. It's unconditional when you're talking about whatever circumstance, whoever it is, whatever it is. That's the unconditional level. So then the appreciation side is also the mother loves their child, and who cares? The child comes and is so happy because they've seen butterfly, or because they've just rubbed their face in the puppy's poo-poo, but they're delighted, right? And if you have that kind of quality of metta, then you're like the child is delighted, and you just feel joy and appreciation in your heart, right? So again, it's getting to the unconditional level that's kind of, we don't talk much about that one in our contemporary culture. We talk about love and compassion, but we don't even have like a good word really for what is that, what's mudita, that level. What is that level of this? Then for the balance part, where we're talking about the upekkha level, then this is really like when you feel like you're able to see or receive or hold or respond to absolutely anything. Whatever it may be, yes, I can do that. I have that depth of mind and heart to be able to hold, to touch, to hold, and also to be able to pass through. And this is our contemporary language. When we talk about unconditional love, we say that. It's like, come what may, I am there with you, whatever. Come hell or high water, we will pass through all of this together. You might say, do people really actually do that? Is this just a kind of a ideal that never occurs? But the kind of depth of mind and heart that the Buddha is talking about when we get into the Brahma Viharas for the metta, karuna, mudita, and upekkha, at this level where they become liberating, that is apamana, when they become boundless, it's exactly that. It's exactly able to hold anything, and exactly able to pass through anything. And when we really think about it in that kind of way, and we really make that kind of decision in our minds that has that kind of quality of that depth of love and compassion and appreciation, and then the upekkha part is what I'm really driving into in a way here. All of these are like qualities of metta, the natural fluent abilities of metta. When there is that level and depth of love, then karuna is how it responds to pain, mudita is how it responds to joy, and then upekkha is really, in a way, it's like that's what gives it that level of depth and capability that just goes deep and becomes free, and then can also like hold and balance and, you know, stabilize everything, right? I can just use contemporary American language, and it rocks our world at that point, right? Maybe it's old now because I'm over 50. Does anybody say that anymore? I don't know. But it's a kind of level then of courage that really rises up in our hearts, that's able to just like not be stuck and not be bounded and not be trapped and not just be afflicted by things, but able to break out and open up and go deep and wide and vast in the ways that our hearts really can, actually. And not only for others and for our child, for our most beloved one, for ourselves, in ourselves as well, in our inner world. And also when we talk about these four, we're talking about what we think of as our outer experience, what we're seeing, hearing, you know, smelling, tasting, touching, feeling, all of that, you know. So for these bases as well, and how we're taking them in, really looking not only at the internal part and it going out, but the part about how we're taking the things in and how we're holding them, and just being really conscious about that. So this is the two sides, the two hands, and then I bring them together with awareness and intentionality. And that makes the Anjali. So this is this particular practice. How does it match up? How does it work in training? We could start with, you know, one part, one here. We just start with how we're seeing things. Or we could start with how we're hearing things, and just ask ourselves for any particular thing at all. It can be in our memory, or it could just be right now even. And are we seeing this with kindness? Or are we seeing this with compassion? Are we seeing this with appreciation? Are we hearing with kindness, with compassion, with appreciation? We can just ask ourselves that question. And I just want to make a point here that this is not meant to be self-judgmental. It's meant to be a very, very neutral kind of just honest questioning, to just see and know what is our experience when we ask ourselves this question. And then just to see what we understand and what word would we use to describe the way that we're seeing this, or the way that we're hearing this, or whatever our sense bases are. So that's one part of it. And then the next part is the part then that Anagarika Siddhinanda was talking about, and that is then, it's like going clothes shopping, and where you just try something on just to see what it feels like and what it looks like. Or you're shopping for shoes and you try them on just to see what they look like and what they feel like, and you don't feel obligated to buy them at all. It's just to see what it's like and to feel what that's like and see whether it's good for you or not. And so this part, you then ask yourself the question, for the way I'm seeing this, what would it be like? What would it be like? What would it be like if, this is the trying it on without obligation, if I were to see this with kindness? Or if I were to receive this with kindness? Or if I were to hold this with kindness? And then you just give yourself a little time to just let that question percolate and work. And for those who have practiced with mindfulness of the body, and mindfulness of feelings, mindfulness of mind, or at least with mindfulness of the body, you can see what happens to your body as you sit and let that question percolate. And just see whether it's healthy and wholesome or not, or whether it's harmful. You can also see when you ask yourself the question earlier on, how am I seeing this? And then you just give a word to identify how that is, or how am I receiving this? And you just ask yourself and see what word comes up to characterize that. And with your practice of mindfulness of the body, you just see when you think about that particular word that's descriptive, and just see what's happening in your body when that's happening, and what kind of feelings are there. Is your mind contracted, or is it expansive? Is it bright and pliant and flexible, or is it like narrow and dark and occluded? Or you just see for yourself with these bases of mindfulness as you think with the one set of descriptive words or word, and then with the other, you just see. You just try it on. You just try it out. And so it's really just it's like a no obligation experiment. And for whatever you find is really healthy and wholesome, then you go with that. You develop that. And so there are the 4 Brahma Viharas, and then there are the 4 your sense bases, how you're seeing or hearing, or the level of the sense bases, how you're smelling something even, or how what you're sensing from touching, but seeing and hearing are often most strong for us in this. And then how you're taking it in, how you're receiving it, and then how you're holding it, and how you're responding, reacting or responding. Just how would it be to respond to this with kindness? How would it be? How would it be to respond to this with compassion? How would it be to respond with appreciation? How would it be to respond in a balanced way? What would that mean? What would that be? How would that be? We just ask ourselves the question, just to be able to just trying on those clothes with those shoes, and just see what it feels like, see how it fits, see whether it's good for you or not. And in this case, if you find it better than what the other option was that you were looking at, or that you had been trying on, you can change them out. So freely, right then and there, without having to fill out a lot of a web form, get any other person's approval. You don't have to. It's just, you can just absolutely freely just do this yourself. And I found this just so empowering, very much in line with the Dhamma teaching that Ajahn Brahmawara mentioned so briefly and succinctly, just mentioning having this choice, just checking it out. Is it helpful and wholesome, or is it not helpful and not wholesome? And just choosing to do what is helpful and wholesome. And the Buddha talked about these 4 qualities to develop them as liberations, as liberators. That is to free us from affliction and from bondage, and the tyranny of the kilesas in a way. So a route to freedom from these, and even before the freedom, how we can really work with them, and just quite simple and easy to practice, easy to understand, easy to work with ways that really, it's not hard to start with, and low investment in time, and doesn't cost anything. You don't have to go through a whole long course, but then you can develop it as much as you wish. For myself, I found it really, really valuable to explore and develop and further and further and further over the years. So far, I haven't found the limit to the value on this one. So it's not, I don't think it's always the right Dhamma contemplation or the right Dhamma practice, but many times it is. It's really progressively helpful, so useful to remember and to understand. And in response to Karina's question, it might not be the way that you are meaning it exactly, but so much of our energy gets trapped in these unhealthy ways of seeing or receiving or holding or reacting to things. So much gets burned up and also just bound up and trapped in these cycles of, say, ineffectual coping mechanisms is a professional term. Ineffectual coping mechanisms means you're trying to manage, and you want it to be good the way you're managing, but your method just doesn't really work well. And this is really coming at what the Buddha taught, is just looking at these things and seeing the things that people are doing that are like just, in a way like floundering around or being swept away by floods, and, just not knowing, not having this sense of path or what can be done that really can engage with this in a way that is healthy and helpful and wholesome and inward leading or onward leading, that really can address our very real needs in a way that works. And so this is something that I found, it does that. This is the great thing about the Buddha's teaching. If you find that like matching methods for the circumstances that we're experiencing, is there are the methods there that really do work well for these things that we humans are experiencing and struggling with, even struggling terribly with sometimes, and getting lost and feeling like we're without a rudder or without a handhold up or lifesaver, what we feel like is needed. And in the Dhamma and in other methods and in this one method that I've just gathered together in the Anjali here, together with the awareness and intentionality as being two key factors here, bringing them together. It can work really fast. Once you've learned it and practiced with it a little bit, just to remember, you can turn your mind around in seconds with things that otherwise would take sometimes years, decades, if not months or weeks or hours or minutes even. Sometimes practicing with this, you get used to the practice and work with it. Our minds are so fast, our bodies are so fast to respond, so sensitive. And these things can turn, we used to say, on the drop of a dime, but anyway, really, truly, in the fraction of a second of just awareness and intentionality. And then just, bringing up this work. So I find that if I feel trapped in ineffectual coping mechanisms, that part is deadening. And then my energy may go down with that. But if I see something that really does look helpful and hopeful, and if I know it is, and then I remember something that's helpful and hopeful, my energy can turn around just like that. It's like just remembering that, just seeing that and remembering that and knowing that is leading in the good way. This is a way that's going to be, applying my energy well. And it feels like that actually gives energy to do that. Where is it coming from? My understanding is that it was trapped. That energy was being trapped in the attachment or the binding or the bondage or the like a loop or a cycle that doesn't really go anywhere, that's just bound up. And when that loop is then opened up, then that energy comes to be released and comes to be, I'm using contemporary language again, bioavailable. It comes to be bioavailable. So not trapped anymore in these kind of deadening, habits, patterns. And it just opens up and becomes available. So it doesn't mean that we don't ever get tired. It doesn't mean that. But just that what energy we do have that may be getting trapped, that there is this way to be able to just open up this cycle and open it up and turn it in a different way that then releases and makes that energy that we have accessible. And that energy then, rather than being a trap or being a bondage, that we're self-creating, that we're feeling stuck in it and we're pushing against it, but it's actually coming from our own habit pattern. Yeah, but then we feel exhausted pushing against this thing, but what is it? So then opening that up, and then, that it's ours and it's free. And then it just becomes free. That life energy becomes free. So there's one message.
Thank you. Wow, I feel so lucky to get such an in-depth teaching part of the Vasa here. I feel very fortunate, very lucky. And I'll say Jinkuye, and I'll let Aya Sarani translate that.
Thank you.
Thank you for your kind words and for asking this valuable question. I had actually drawn my name out of the bowl earlier on, but this is the thing, being in a position of power. I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear what others had to say, and also I thought, okay, if things run a bit late, then maybe I'll say something. But I just really want to hear and to benefit and to offer the chance for everybody to be able to hear from all those who are here with us and who we're practicing together, who they might not ordinarily have a chance to hear. And that's part of what the Dhamma Marathon is traditionally for, is to offer the chance to share for all members of our practicing community together, including ones that we don't normally hear from, because we know how valuable that can be for people. We need to see those who are far along in the path, and we also need to see those who are much closer to us. We need to see those who are very different than us and working with different things, and then seeing those who are working with things very much like what we are working with, but progressively working with them, who seem more close to us, is just so valuable. And we all are just such a variety of circumstances and stages. I feel this is the Buddha's brilliance, really, in commending different disciples, whether bhikkhus or bhikkhunis or upasikas or upasikas, not only Visakha for her great offerings to the Sangha. Visakha was great, absolutely, but other upasikas and upasikas and bhikkhunis and bhikkhus for all these various qualities that the Buddha commended them for. And reflecting on this is Sanghanusati, mindfulness or recollection of the Sangha. It's really helped me to see the different merits and virtues of those who are our contemporary Sangha, who I'm sharing this life of practice together with as my co-residents, and really to be able to see their unique virtues and unique offerings, to appreciate that and to appreciate the value of sharing them. Thank you, Karina. It's good to have good Dhamma friends in this world.
Can I just take one moment to say Roger is actually just in the room right over there with tech support.
Oh, thank you, Roger. We can see you now in the DD tech support. Roger, blue t-shirt, smiling. Just smiling, unmoving. Thank you, Roger. And others in tech support as well. Our tech support is often in